Welcome to First Tuesdays, sponsored by the Washington State Library. And I am Jennifer Fenton. I'm happy to be your host today. Carolyn is unable to join us today, but she is also a co-coordinator and host of this series. Technical support today is provided by Joe and Jeremy, so if you lose sound or the slides aren't working or other technical difficulties arise, please give a shout out to one of them. So you might want to note their email addresses. So this is brought to you by the Washington State Library Office of the Secretary of State, funded through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And before we move on to introducing our speaker today, I would like to invite everyone to please go ahead and type in chat your library and your library organization and the city-state you are joining us from. We have quite an amazing variety of people here today from all over the country, from Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and then people from Washington State, from Mount Vernon and Linwood and Timberland, which is our neighboring library system here. So welcome to everyone. Today's program is about genealogy resources, and because this is a full program today, we are going to ask that if you have questions, Kim will address them at the end of the session, but go ahead and type them in chat, and I will keep track of them, and then I can go over them with her at the end of the session, and she's willing to stay late if we need additional time for questions. And also, all of this will be archived and available on our website as well. So please go ahead and chat your questions as they arise. I'm also going to send to you a handout that has the resources that Kim's going to cover, and that will come to you through this software, and you can save it, and if you choose to, so that you will have that. It will also, I believe, Jeremy, be posted on our website later today with the archive. So I will be sending that out once Kim starts. We're really pleased today to have Kim from the Washington State Library joining us for this very popular topic of genealogy. So, Kim, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Yes?
Loud and clear.
Great, thank you. Okay. The handout that Jennifer just sent is the list of all of the websites I'm going to talk about today. So all of the URLs are there, so I'm not going to give them during the presentation. They're all on that sheet. Okay. So, well, first we'll just give a outline of what we're going to do today, sort of divided into thirds. First third, we're going to go over just a quick tour of a variety of different genealogy websites. Then we're going to move on to historical newspapers online, and then we'll finish up with some search techniques that will help you get more out of ancestry and family search. So let's begin. My first website isn't actually one specific website. It's more of a research tip or recommendation. When you or your patrons bump into a new family member in a new location, often people are used to searching on Ancestry, and that's their main focus. What I recommend is don't neglect the websites for these organizations. By and large, you are never going to be the first person doing research in a particular county, and there are people who have been there for years and who are experts in their local area, and more their knowledge and information is going up online. So just Googling the town or the county and adding Genealogy Society or Genealogical Society and finding what's available online for that new area that you're not familiar with is a great place to start. Where are we here? These, for example, are two obituary indexes from Tacoma Public Library and the North Olympic System Library, which is up in Port Angeles. And these do more, actually, than just provide obituary citations. they also provide, end up working as death records, especially for dates prior to death certificates being issued in this state. And so that's some examples of what's available on a public library. And even if there isn't anything available on the public library for genealogy, I do recommend to patrons, if you have a really specific question, to contact the local public library. I always make the point of saying, don't contact a public library and ask, can you do this research on my family? Because usually the answer will be no. But if you want to know what the paper was called in 1910 in a particular town, maybe that's a good place to start at the public library. If it's a small little town and you want to know which of the larger surrounding cities, which daily paper covered that little town, maybe you can email the public library and ask them. Or even just ask them, is there a local genealogy society? Who can I contact in your area who's an expert in this? It's just a good place to start, even if they don't have genealogy databases on their website. These are websites for a historical society museum and a museum of arts and culture, which is not something we often would think of to go for genealogy information. But in both cases, they have items. In the Historical Society, you can see there's a family history book, and there's actually oral histories available at the Museum of Arts and Culture. So checking out and poking around in every nook and cranny of these local websites can end up being really helpful. This is the more typical place you're going to end up if you do a city or county search for genealogy. It'll be the local Gen Society website, and what you'll find will vary dramatically. You might end up with nothing more than an address and list of meeting times, or you might end up with all sorts of online databases that the local Gen Society has done tons of work on and put online. This particular one from Tacoma, Pierce County, you can see they have a collection of veterans' graves in Pierce County, and that could be entirely unique to them. There might not be another Gen Society in Washington that has that, but it's something that they did and available for free on your computer. And if you happen to find the person you're searching for, you get some great information in here. US GenWeb is a national site, and I apologize for the blurriness. I had to decrease the file size of some of these slides in order to upload the presentation. So some of them are a little fuzzy, so I'll apologize. It's a little blurry. Apologize in advance. US GenWeb hosts often county genealogy sites across the country. This is the one for Pierce County. Sometimes the US Gen website will be the County Genealogical Society. It'll be one and the same. But in this case, with Pierce County, as you can see, this is different. So now we have two Pierce County sites. So it's good to check both. Google Pierce County Genealogical Society and also check the US Gen Web. And again, my recommendation for these is check every single page. Take time. Don't rush through them. Go through every little nook and cranny. Check everything out, because these people who are creating the site are the local experts in the area you're now researching in. And always, always go to the links page.
Kim, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
There was a question. We forgot to ask that earlier. Do you want us to hold off on all questions, or?
Yeah, I'll do at the end. I'll answer any and all.
All right, thank you.
Okay. This just happened to be a link that I was not expecting from the US Gen Web Pierce County site, and it went to a university webpage. And I have to admit, I would not have thought to go to a university website for genealogy information, but they have an oral history collection at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, and it's a little blurry, but you get this goldmine of information in this particular oral history. And more universities are creating digital collections on their website. So it's not something that's necessarily unique to this one university. But it's something that you very likely would not have found if you were just trying to poke around looking for genealogy websites. But because somebody in the local community knew about this, the link now is on the US GenWeb Pierce County site. So that's why I recommend don't rush through those local sites. Take your time and mine them for everything you possibly can. And then, of course, because I'm here at the Washington State Library, I want to recommend that you check out your state-level library archives and historical society websites as well. This is the most popular site for genealogy on our webpage because we do free OBIT lookups. So in many cases, the information will be the reverse. We're sorry, we are not able to do research on your behalf. But either way, take the time and go and poke around through those state-level websites to see what you can find. This is sort of the introductory page on our site, and it lists the things that are physically here in our collection, but we've also pulled together resources just in general for people doing Washington State genealogy research. And again, there's that links page down there at the bottom. So, and you end up with links to all the city directories and phone books that we have here for Washington State, which are things physically in the building, and then here are links to information that don't necessarily have anything to do with us, but they're resources that we found and pulled together for Washington State genealogy on vital records and obituaries and cemeteries. And all of this stuff is on our site, and if you have patrons doing Washington State genealogy, we hope you can send them to our site and they can poke around and hopefully find some helpful things. These are handouts, bibliographies that we've created. Some of them are just lists of what we have at the State Library, but the three in the middle there, the how-to ones, are, oh, and I see I spelled Washington wrong in the middle there. I'll have to fix that. How to find vital records in Washington. And these aren't necessarily vital records that we have, but we just got the questions so much that we put together handouts to help people through that process. And those are PDFs. You can download them or refer people to them if you find that helpful. There's just a couple different handouts. That this one does little, 1 or 2 sentence histories of the counties, and I find it useful because it gives the creation date for the counties, which, if you're looking for Chelan records from 1880 and you can't find any Chelan County records, well, it's because there was no Chelan County in 1880. So sometimes when I run into those problems, I just check out this handout and to figure out what the creation date was of the counties. This is one where we list the state censuses done in Washington. And most people are familiar, of course, with the U.S. federal census that's on Ancestry, a variety of different places. But different states also conducted their own. Different counties did their own, did them in different years. You don't necessarily, as you can see just with the top of this handout here, you don't get the same dates for every county. But we've just compiled a list of what's available for this particular state. And luckily, in Washington, we have the Washington Digital Archives, which is where you can go and view the originals of these documents for free. The state censuses are on Washington Digital Archives, where we're going to go now. So, if you have someone just beginning in Washington State genealogy, this is a great place to start. There are millions of records that have been scanned and indexed and are put up on here that you can use. It's a free website. It is just the tip of the iceberg of what's physically available in the archives building, but it's still pretty amazing, and it's not found in every state, so we're pretty lucky. There's a variety of different searches. I have this drop-down menu here blocking the search by name one, but that's the most common. Just plug in a name on the home page and click on search, and go through the list of results. However, what I have here with the arrow pointing is if you want to search just one specific collection on digital archives, or if you want to know if a collection is there, which is a more relevant problem. If you do a search and there's no results, I usually like to know is that because, Uncle Fred wasn't, in Washington State yet, and that's why there's no results? Or is it because the records just aren't up on digital archives yet, and Uncle Fred was here? That's, you know, an important difference. So if you click on the Collections tab there, and then select Record Series, so Collections, Record Series, you get this list under Collections Online of all the different kinds of records that they have put up on this digital archive. I clicked on Census, and on the right, we get this list of every individual state and federal census that is available. So, you know, if you search from the home page and you get what you want, you might not need to go in through this way, but I just find it helpful to know what I'm searching. And also, if you click on one of these individual censuses on the right, you get a description. It tells you when the census was done. You get a citation. You get a search option where you can just search that particular collection. And that can become useful if someone's looking for John Smith or Peter Jones. And searching from the home page gets them 20,000 hits. So this, if they happen to know, well, Uncle Peter Jones lived in Pierce County most of his life, maybe it becomes a more useful searching to go through the steps to get to this page and just search this collection. So it's an option. This is what you get when you just do a name search from the home page. You just get a list of the different kind of records that were found. And so I clicked on Census Records, and the search was for John Kincaid. And I just want to point out that sometimes when people are using digital archives, they think this is as far as they can go. But you can always click on the name to get the index entry for the individual. And especially over on the right there in the circle, if it says image exists, that means you can actually view the original. So that's the index entry, get the citation, you get the link to the original, which you can see, you can zoom in, and you know, for an 1857 census, it's a little faded, but the fact that you can do this for free from any computer as opposed to having to travel to Washington to the archives to look at it is pretty great. So just finish a couple of the collections on digital archives if you're doing Washington State genealogy. This is going to be very useful. It's partial transcriptions of Washington State death certificates from July 1st, 1907 through the end of 1960. And there are a variety of other death indexes online. And this one is available also on Family Search and beginning to become available on Ancestry. But we just want to point out that it's here as well. We use it every single day. And this is one where often we will have patrons who think this is as far as they can go in their search because it says not available under image exists. But you're missing out all sorts of good stuff if you don't click on the name. We didn't create this index, but our understanding just from using it is that any name, including the parents' names or the spouse's names, that are on the death certificate are in this index, which means you can get mother's maiden names, which is one of the hardest things to find in genealogy, if the name was on the death certificate. So it's a really great collection. And just from the list there on the left, you can see there are birth records, there are military records, there are some prison records, and the institution records collection. There's just a wealth of information. Probably the largest used collection are the marriage records. There are thousands and thousands of marriage certificates that have been scanned and are available for free to view on Washington Digital Archives. So, and you can play around on the marriage when you get to the page for specific marriage collection. You can see here, I just used first names and a date range. You can play around with it. And what you end up getting is a slightly blurry, not in real life, it was clear in real life, but marriage certificate for free online. This, however, is a marriage license application which contains more information, and those are not online. So it's just sort of an example of Washington Digital Archives is the tip of the iceberg, but the physical archives has tons more that's available for people. Okay. Social Security Death Index, just for Washington State, is on Digital Archives for free. Ancestry recently removed the Social Security Death Index from the Free Roots website. However, we have found it for free still on Fold 3, which the website will be on the handout. And so it's still available there, free website, if people don't have access to Ancestry. Okay, yet another blurry one, but online Washington, sorry. No, I missed it. Okay, this is deathindexes.com is this website. I clicked on the Washington State section of it, but it has links for all of the states. And deathindexes.com is just a good place to start again if you bump into a new state that you're researching, a new location, just to sort of get a quick overview of what's available online. You click on the state you want and you can browse through. They won't necessarily have everything, but it's just really useful and quick and easy to get a nice summary of some of the online death records. Cindy's List, of course, is probably the premier index to genealogy resources online, just not for death records, for everything. Again, they don't necessarily have everything because it's pretty much impossible for one website to have all the links out there. But it's again a really good place to start when you bump into a new topic or new location, new country. With you find your family in a different country, you've never researched there before. If you start at Cindy's List, it just gives you a really nice overview of what's available out there. And then she then links you to those sites, and off you go. These are cemetery transcription websites, internment.net and Find a Grave. Find a Grave has sort of exploded recently. Lots of people have discovered it. Ancestry sort of, I believe, also has its information within Ancestry, so I think that's how people have discovered it. But it also serves, as a death index. You can find out all sorts of death information and location and burial locations for people on those sites, both of which are free. This is Obituary Daily Times, which is basically just a giant volunteer obituary index. People just submit obituary citations to it, and there are millions of them in here. I did a search for, at the top, you can see anyone with the last name Crosby, and then the short form for Washington, WA. And it doesn't link you to the obituary. You can't view it, but at least you know one exists, and it gives you a death location. So it's another website that we use regularly. And we will often, when people send obituary requests to us, it will have these citations that are directly from here. So this is where they've discovered that an obituary exists. Vital Search. I don't know if anyone has heard of this website. It's a subscription website. I believe it's somewhere around $80, $90 a year. And I discovered it about 10 years ago, and they've never really updated their search function, so it's not particularly user-friendly. However, it has information that we haven't been able to find anywhere else. So you put up with the difficult searching to get that information. And the information I'm talking about, in our case, is birth index for Washington State from 1930 to 54. We have one on microfilm, but it only goes up to 1929. And so these 20-plus years are ones we've only been able to find on this website. So if you have patrons who are looking for a Washington State birth up to 1954, we can search the index. You can send in a request to our Ask a Librarian page if you run into that situation. And just a heads up, the birth index is listed by father's name. So you do have to know the father's name in order to do the search. The reason I found it originally is for this particular result, it has a California death index from 1905 to 1929, I believe, that's on this site, and you can search it for free. And you can have get a guest pass, and it lets you in and searches it for free. And that early California death information is not available online, as far as I know, anywhere else, unless it's recently appeared somewhere. And it's not. This isn't. The headings aren't blurry because of my slide size problems. They're just that blurry, and it's the kind of thing of, well, you wouldn't put up with it if you had some nice clear website to go and search. But in this case, so far, we haven't been able to find this early California death information anywhere else. So then you put up with the blurry headings. And again, this particular index, the California 1905 to 29, is available on Vital Search for free. You don't need a subscription to use it. VitalRec.com is just a collection of how to get access to vital records, both in other countries, but mostly in the United States. It's just like deathindexes.com. It's a nice place to go because it summarizes all the information. So when I clicked on Washington, I get the state agency who holds the records with a link to them. I get a list of the different kinds of records, what dates they're available for. I still usually recommend going to the original government website that holds the records and ordering directly from them. Not that I think there's a problem ordering from VitalRec, but I just prefer going to the source. But especially if you bump into a state, again, that you're not familiar with, that you've never encountered, you don't know exactly what the government department is called that would hold the records, VitalRec is a really great place to go. It just provides that information for you quick and easy. Okay, let's move on to newspapers. There are still the majority of the historical newspaper searching is done on microfilm, and we have people in the State Library here every day using our collection of Washington State newspapers. However, more and more, bit by bit, they're getting scanned and indexed and put up online, and quite a few in free places. This is a page on our site, and the link is on the handout, that lists the variety of online historical newspaper collections that we found. And the one by the arrow there is one we've recently found where someone's trying to do basically what Cindy's list does, or deathindexes.com does, which is give you an overview to what's available. And they're doing quite a good job. I'll go to the sites and clicked on United States and Washington, and got quite a comprehensive list of what's available out there, what years are available, whether it's free, whether it costs money, who hosts the files, what website they're on. The one down with the arrow pointing to at the bottom, Genealogy Bank, is America's Genealogy Bank from Newsbank. So that's actually a paid resource that we offer access to within the library. But if you're within Washington State, in the King County area, Seattle Public Library, you can access this database remotely if you have a library card with them. And it's a national database, so it's not just Washington State. We use it because it has the Seattle Times in it from 1924 to 1984, which is a really great resource because they covered events all over the state. So we will have people who write in and say, my uncle was in a plane crash, but it was sometime in the 60s, and I don't know when. And often we can come here and search the name and plane crash and find an article in the Seattle Times, even if the plane crash happened on the other side of the state. And it just helps us focus in dates and locations. So it's really a useful resource. And that's just, I did a search for Puyallup fire, and there we are. I can sit at my desk computer and read the Tacoma Daily News from 1890 about the fire in Puyallup. So again, there are newspapers in Genealogy Bank from all over the country. It's not a Washington-based product. It's just what we use it most for here. Okay. Washington State Library has several very old newspapers that have been scanned and indexed and are available to look at on our website. This is a partial list here on the drop-down menu. You can also do a personal name search, thanks to many, many hours of volunteers indexing those newspapers. There's a personal name search page, and you end up with, this is the 1879, I believe, paper from LaConner, showing a homestead application for John Peterson. Again, just an example of what's available on our site. However, as far as I know, the papers that we are indexing and scanning now, we're sending to the Library of Congress Chronicling America website. This, again, will be a national collection of free online historical newspapers from not every state yet. You can see they're from the drop-down menu on the left, but they're certainly working at it, and we've sent quite a few of our scanned and indexed newspapers to them. So I just clicked on Washington in that drop-down menu just to get you get a list of the titles that are available. You can just pick one, like I did here, Tacoma Times, and you can search by keyword up top there in the keyword box, in the search box, sorry, or you can browse it like microfilm, basically. You click on calendar view, you select the year you want, you click on the day you want, and you just browse through the paper. If you do a keyword search, your results will look like this. And there you are. You can be anywhere in the world reading the Tacoma Times from 1912, free on the Library of Congress website. So, pretty useful. Okay. See here. We're going to go do some live searching on the internet now. So what I've circled here are the newspapers that are available on the Google News Archive. And if Jeremy can get me live on the internet, I will show it to you. There we go. Okay. This is our home page. I'm just going to click on Genealogy and click on newspapers, and here we go. Historical newspapers online. Okay, so the reason we've listed every single title that we found on this Google News Archive for Washington State is because there's no way to list it by location that we have found. So it's an alphabetical list of hundreds and hundreds of newspapers, but it's by the name of the paper. And not until, if they don't include the name of the city in the newspaper title, you don't know which Adams County News, for example, on the right there, which Adams County and what state they're talking about until you go in and look at it. So that is one of the glitches with this, but it's worth it just for the sheer volume of what's available. I'm trying to get to the spokesman review here. There we go. So this, again, can be one of the cases where we might say to people, you might want to email the local library for the place you're researching and ask them, what was the name of your local paper in 1920? And this could be one of the reasons, because you want to check and see if it's available on Google News Archive. Spokesman review, if you look right in the middle of the page there, over 31,000 issues scanned and available to look at for free. So I'm just going to click on that. Now, up at the top here, there's a lovely search archive box, which sounds wonderful and is just what we like. I just want to type in some keywords, I want to get my results, and I'm done. Wonderful. Unfortunately, we've discovered that The search cannot read the tiny, tiny print in some of these newspapers, especially the Spokesman Review, and so you can do a search and it will come back and tell you there's no results. Well, it's just because it can't read the tiny print. So usually I am searching this just like microfilm. I don't trust the keyword searches. I go in by a date, and here's the second glitch with Google News Archive is not everything is in here. You can see there's only 2 issues for February 1925. There's 20 issues for May 1925. So it's not perfect, but the fact that it's free and online still makes it worth putting up with. This is what happens when you click on a particular issue. You can enlarge it. You can drag the blue box around to highlight what you're looking at. You can click the page through button there. So it's, there's a few glitches with it that make it difficult sometimes to find what you're looking for, but if you happen to luck out and are doing lots of Spokane research, you can do this for free on your computer from anywhere in the world. All right. We're doing okay here on time. Let's move to Ancestry.com, AncestryLibrary.com. Hold on. It doesn't want to. There we go. Okay. So, and this is the library version that Ancestry provides to libraries who subscribe. And it might look a little different than the personal subscription, but I believe it might be missing a few of the things like family trees that people can upload and so on. But by and large, it's the same. Okay. The most important thing I can tell you about searching Ancestry is to click the Show Advanced button. And I will show you why. When you click Show Advanced, this page appears, and you need to click what I like to call the magic box up here, because otherwise Ancestry is going to help you. And let me show you what happens when Ancestry helps you. I'm going to search for John Smith, who lives in Puyallup, Washington. I'm waiting for usually Ancestry. Oh, okay. And I don't click the Search Advanced button, the Show Advanced button. I don't tell it to do a specific search. I get over, you see there, 42 million hits for John Smith living in Puyallup, Washington. Well, Puyallup's not that big a town, so I'm pretty sure that there are not 42 million records for John Smith. And sure enough, if you go through all the records, what you find is there's records for people in England and Australia and every state in the country, and that's just Ancestry being helpful. So I always, before I do any search on here, click the Show Advanced, click the magic box, and do the search like that. There we go. And I get 100 hits, which is much more workable. It's especially something you're going to run into with patrons when they just search from the home page, and the default is the non-specific search. Ancestry, you have to tell it you want to do a specific search. So that's why you'll have patrons who just end up with millions and millions of results and are completely frustrated and can't find what they're looking for or give up because no one can wade through 42 million results. So I highly recommend always telling it to do a specific search. The other thing I just want to point out, this is just my own personal preference, over here on the right, the default in Ancestry is to give you your results every individual record in a list. So I, however, I'm clicking on the Categories tab. I like to get an overview of what I've found, what kinds of things I've found, before I start going in looking at the individual records. And again, you have to tell it to do that. You have to click on that Categories tab there on the right. The default is to list the individual records. And this is just a pure mystery. I have no idea why when I click on Categories, I magically now have 131 results. But when I click on Records, I have 100 results for John in Puyallup. I have no idea why. One of the mysteries of Ancestry. Okay. Go back to the home page here. I just want to point out that Ancestry has what they call a card catalog, which isn't a term that we necessarily use in libraries anymore, but it's useful. And again, it's on that search tab and down at the bottom right there. It's useful. It lists every individual database on their site. So if you find family in Vermont and doing your genealogy research and you want to know what's available on Ancestry for Vermont, you can type that into the keyword and it will list the 356 databases that have Vermont records. It is also helpful if you just want to search one particular collection. You just want to, hold on, there we go. You can click on any of the ones that show up in that results list, and now you're on the search page just for that individual collection. So you don't always have to just do searches from the home page of Ancestry. You work your way through the card catalog, and as you can see, it gives you a lot of information about the records. It tells you who holds them. There's a lot of information in there. Okay. Back to the home page. So even when you have the match all terms exactly box checked, you can still do broaden your search. And there's other, without having to uncheck the box and end up with the 40 million results again. The restrict to exact that appears below these three search boxes here lets you do sound-X searches or sound-like searches, lets you broaden the search without having to uncheck the box. So that is useful. And now I'm going to pop back over here to the slides. There we go. Ancestry also has wildcards. The asterisk replaces unlimited number of letters, so you can see there with Anne. And the question mark just replaces one letter, which is really helpful with those Scandinavian names where you're not sure if it was EN or ON or how the census taker wrote it down or how the Ancestry indexer wrote it, created the index entry. So, and especially with names where the spelling just gets mangled, these can end up being really useful. This is something we run into quite frequently, is patrons like to fill in every available search box because they're so proud that they know the information, because it probably took a lot of work to track down all that information. And so they just look at it almost like a questionnaire and they fill in all the information they know. Unfortunately, Ancestry, every search box is not indexed. So some census index entries, the location of birth is not included in the index file for that individual. So you can type in Norway and it'll come back and say, no, nobody there. Well, she did. If you eventually find her and work your way through and look at the original record, yes, she was born in Norway. But Ancestry sometimes didn't include that information in the index. So again, I have the match all terms exactly box checked there. So I could uncheck it. It's always an option. But we just tell, I usually, it's more controlled search if you leave it checked. And just tell people to start removing some of the information from those boxes, especially if it's looking for the census information for people whose parents are dead or whose parents live in another state. Especially with census, you're only searching for the family that are together in one census entry. So don't include the parents' names if the parents live in New Jersey, and Madeline and William here live in Tumwater, Washington, with their 12 children. Don't include the parents' names, and sometimes they can even have a hard time getting patrons to remove the information because they're just adamant. Well, that's their names. That's the parents' names. Yes, we know, but it doesn't help you in your search in Ancestry. So definitely can be an issue. Names getting completely mangled can also be an issue, and a lot of this is just playing around trying to get around the problems that are created with the person who gave the information in the first place could have been slightly wrong. The person who wrote it down in 1900 could have spelt things wrong. And then when the Ancestry was indexing it, they could have gotten it wrong. And it doesn't matter how many Foundex searches you do or how many wildcards you use, you're never going to find the people. And I'll just show you an example here. Here's Mary, who I knew a bit of information about, born in Washington around 1902. She's living in Seattle. And I was looking for Mary Zamberlin. And every variation of search I tried on Zamberlin, nothing came up. So I took Zamberlin out and tried just searching Mary. And sure enough, there was a Mary Zonbrecker. And, well, that's interesting. Not a whole lot of last names that begin with Z. And sure enough, there's the original over there on the left, which looks like Zamberlin to me. But this is the index entry that Ancestry created. They looked at that and said, oh, that's Mary Zonbrecker. Well, that's why I couldn't find Mary Zamberlin. So, again, it's a miracle sometimes we find anything in the census records with the amount of ways things could go wrong. Ancestry lets you add family members to the search by clicking the little plus add family members bar there. And that can definitely help, especially when you're looking for Mary Smith or, Peter Jones. Adding family members definitely helps. And sometimes just searching for the kids, when you have someone with a common name, you don't always have to look for the head of the household, which people are kind of used to doing. In this case, looking for Esther or Pearl, which are names that are probably hard to misspell for the census taker or the indexer. It's easier to find Esther and Pearl Smith than it is to find John Smith. So you don't always have to search for the parents. You can play around with it, search for the kids. And here's another reason why you're going to want to search for the kids. When people can't find who they're looking for in the census, sometimes it's simply because there are a lot of deaths and a lot of remarriages. So in 1910, there's Jacob and Francis and their 5 kids. And Jacob dies and Francis remarries John Rowley, the lower one, in 1920. So it didn't matter how many search tips I tried trying to find Jacob, I was never going to find him. He was dead. But I could find Lawrence and Eunice Crosby, and sure enough, you can reconnect with the family. So it's just trying to be flexible and trying to locate the information you're looking for. All right, let's finish off here with family search. Ancestry, of course, is a subscription website, not free, very much so not free. Family search is free. And they're adding more and more all the time. So it is, don't just check it once and give up. Keep going back. And again, this is their homepage. You can search from the homepage, just like you can on Ancestry or Digital Archives. You can just do a search from the homepage. You can click they also have the Match All Terms Exactly box, which will give you specific searches. Especially with family search, because they're always adding new things, I like to go in and see what I'm searching, to see what's there. And so you just do that by going to the bottom there and clicking on United States, or whichever country you're interested in. And then you get an alphabetical list of all the different collections of records that are on there, including when they were last updated and how many records are in there. And it just ends up being really helpful. If you look here, there's 2 collections of Alabama death records. Both cover about 70 years, but one has almost 2 million and one has 100,000. And so if you want to go in and see what's covered in these collections, you just click on one. You get a short description, but you can click on Learn More, because this one isn't really telling me, you know, does it just cover a few counties? Why are there only 100,000 records in this database? So I clicked on Learn More, and sure enough, I'm now told it's not complete for any place or any region. It's just sort of a random collection. So if you don't find what you're looking for in this particular one, now you know. It doesn't mean there's no record. It just means it's not here. And if we clicked on the second one that has almost 2 million, it doesn't even need to click on Learn More, because it tells us exactly what this is, death certificate index. So I just find it helpful to know what I'm searching. They do have indexes to every census. So you can look at index entries that look like this for all of the census records for free, which is great. What you cannot do is look at the original census for everyone. Some years they are available. I would say 1920 and 30 maybe are not. So you get this over on the left here where you can explore your viewing options, which are often go to Ancestry or go to a family history library and view it there. So, you know, you can still get quite a bit for free through this site, even if you can't view the original. All right, and finally, when you do a search from the homepage of Family Search, you are not getting access to all of these collections where it just says Browse Images, because they are not indexed yet. So there's millions of records that are in there. They've been scanned, they're there, but you're not going to find them if you just do the name search. And so this is why I like to click on, you know, United States, get the list and browse through and see what's available that I can't search from the homepage. So if you click on this particular one here, Pierce County Marriage Returns, you get a description, and you are told there are 12,000 images, at which point you're like, forget it. I don't have time. However, what they've done is they have broken it down by year, by certificate number. So if you know the marriage was in the beginning of 1913, you can click on this one at the top, second from the top here. And if you're willing to put the time in, you can end up and actually have the image of the marriage. This is a marriage return from 1891 from Roy, Washington. So the records are there. If you're willing to put some time in, you can find them, but you will not find them if you're searching from the homepage. Currently, that will eventually change as their volunteers continue to work and index these collections. So that is it. We are done, and I hope there was some useful information in there for you. And if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer.
Hi, Kim. This is Jennifer. I logged some questions.
Okay.
So early on, when you were showing one of the databases or websites, the question from Irene was, is a Tacoma library card required? So did you want to talk a little bit about authentication and what's easily accessible and what does require library cards?
The Tacoma Public Library website has databases that you can search for free on their website. You don't usually, well, by and large, you don't end up looking at the original item. They're just indexes. So the obituary index just tells you there is one, but it doesn't link you to the image of the obituary. And they don't do obituary lookups anymore, so we get a lot of those. People submit Tacoma obituary requests on our website, and we do, that's part of our, the free obituary lookup service we provide. But if it's a database that the library has created themselves, indexing their own material, it's not usually library card required, as opposed to the ones that libraries have to pay for, like America's Genealogy Bank. They have to pay for that database, and you can pay more and allow your patrons to access it remotely with a library card, or not. So That's the deal with Tacoma.
Thank you. Another question was, where can you find the county boundaries and the dates they changed, if they changed? And that came from Shari at Oak Harbor.
I think we actually have an atlas for Washington that shows that. So that's just specific to here, and it's a print source. I'm not aware of an online resource for Washington. And I'm not aware that there's, in general, that that's online. But that might be something that you, well, in this case, you can email us if you have a specific question, or you can email us and I can give you we'll track down the title of the collection of maps that we have for that.
Thank you. From Mary came a question, do you know how to add a family cemetery plot to one of those cemetery sites?
I have never done it myself, so I don't know. If they don't provide clear information, let's find a grave, I'm assuming is probably the one, because that's the most popular one at the moment. I don't have personal experience with it. I would hope that somewhere on their site they either lay that out or give you an email address to contact them to ask how to do it. But, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, it was from Find a...
Yeah.
Another question, or comment from Dylan about when you were talking about ancestry was that it leads to hyperspecificity, right? Some records might not have an index for a given field.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely ran into that with the 1930 census. Whoever was doing the indexing for that, often they would not put in the state where the people, or country where the people were born in the index record. But that box is on the search field, so people fill it in. And in the other census years, it is included. So you're just used to it. You know, they were born in Oklahoma, and I'm just used to typing that in, and it will come up and say, no, there's no hits. Then the problem is some of the indexers did include it, so it's not like you can't. It's not a across-the-board thing. It's just something to be aware of, especially with the 1930 census. Not all the fields are indexed, even though the search boxes are on the page.
Great, thank you. And then a question from from Mickey. What is a marriage return?
A return, there's death returns, birth returns. A return is usually, it looks like a certificate. It's usually, at least in the state of, for Washington State, it was before the state began issuing certificates, and different counties took it upon themselves to fill out these one-sheet records for an individual. So, as opposed to what they were legally required to do was do registers, which are, you know, a one-line entry per person. But some of the counties also did returns, which it's just the one sheet. It'll, you know, you fill in the blanks, name, date, where you were born, parents, all that stuff. And today we'd look at it and say, oh, that's either a marriage certificate or a marriage license application. It's just an individual record as opposed to the register, which is the big giant book that, you know, everyone gets only one line. So.
Thank you, Kim. All right, so now we'll open it up to more questions. Thank you very much, Kim. I see people are typing a little bit more, so if you'll be around, you can answer those. It looks like you have some thank yous. Yes, the PowerPoint, Jeremy, that's a question for you. Will that be posted along with the handout?
The PowerPoint in and of itself, most likely not, just because 10 megabytes. I was thinking about putting up a PDF of the PowerPoint, though. So you'll still have access to the slides.
Thank you, Jeremy. So a PDF of the PowerPoint. Okay, a question from Allison. Tips on printing from Ancestry.
Yeah, it can depend what browser you're in. We have found it to be easier more recently. I haven't done it lately, actually. Just going to check here for a minute if they have updated their interface. Let me see. It used to be much more difficult, but we don't even have we don't have new computers. We try to update the browser to keep it the most updated so it can talk to Ancestry better. Just trying to open a record here and see what they've. Yeah, we've actually. I'm just trying to think. We haven't really had problems so much as we did in the past. They definitely help. So I'm trying to rack my brain here to think of what the problems would be. Because when you click on the print option, you either get print the entire image or print only what you're looking at on the screen. And you can also have the option of having the source and citation on the page. And we've not had any problems with that. So I don't know if that's a function of just having the most current version of the browser, or because definitely our computers are very old. So it's not that they're new and fast and can can handle great volumes, but yeah.
Kim, is it okay? Roxanne would like to post a link to your PowerPoint. Is that okay for her to do that on her Genealogy Society website?
Sure.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Let's see. It looks like Allison said the printing tip for hers doesn't work. She has to save it to documents and then print it in large.
Oh. Well, other than selecting the zoom option is the only thing I can think of. Because the default is print the entire image, which is when you can get a really tiny, because they, it can be an entire census page, and then the print is just minuscule. But they did give you the option to print the zoomed view, in which case you just print what you have open on your screen. And so if you zoom in on the screen, that's what we've been doing. And it actually works a lot better than it used to in years past. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, if you can save it and print it off, I suppose at least you can get it, at least you can access it. But yeah, I don't know what else to offer for that one.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Other questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and Kim will be around for a minute if people have additional questions.